April 20th, 2026. At 4:53 p.m., the ground beneath Japan shook violently. Phones blared with emergency alerts. Trains stopped mid-route. Buildings swayed in Tokyo, hundreds of miles away. Along the northeast coast, sirens began to howl. Then came the warning no one in Japan ever wants to hear. Tsunami. Evacuate immediately. For millions, it was an instant flashback to 2011, the disaster that scarred the nation forever. But this earthquake brought an even more chilling message after the shaking stopped. Officials warned the chances of another, even larger quake had suddenly increased. This is the story of the 2026 earthquake that struck Japan, how close the country came to disaster, and why the danger may not be over just yet. The powerful offshore earthquake struck near the Sanriku coast of northeastern Japan on April 20th, 2026. Measuring above magnitude 7, it was strong enough to send tremors across much of the country. The epicenter lay beneath the Pacific Ocean, where one of the most dangerous fault systems on Earth sits just offshore. Japan is no stranger to earthquakes. The country experiences thousands every year. Most are minor. Many go unnoticed. But when a powerful quake hits offshore in the northeast, everyone understands the stakes immediately. Because here, the shaking is only the beginning. The greatest danger can come minutes later from the sea. Within moments of the quake, Japan's meteorological agency issued tsunami warnings for sections of the Pacific coast. Waves were initially forecasted to flood harbors, surge into rivers, and strike low-lying communities. Residents were told not to wait, not to gather belongings, and not to go to the shoreline to watch. Just leave. That message carries enormous weight in Japan because many people remember what hesitation cost in 2011. A magnitude 9.0 earthquake triggered a catastrophic tsunami that overwhelmed seawalls, destroyed entire towns, and killed nearly 20,000 people. In some places, survivors later said they had underestimated how fast the water could move. Others thought they had more time. Many did not. This time, when the warnings came, coastal communities reacted fast. In towns like Kamaishi, Miyako, and Otsuchi, evacuation routes that had been drilled for years suddenly became real again. Elderly residents were helped uphill. Schools moved children to designated safe areas. Businesses shut their doors. Emergency crews spread through streets, making sure people moved inland. At fishing harbors, crews made split-second decisions. Some captains steered boats away from docks and out into deeper water, where tsunami surges can sometimes be safer than being smashed against piers. Others tied down what they could and ran. Everywhere there was urgency, but there was also discipline. Japan's response systems are among the most advanced in the world. Early warning networks detect seismic waves and can send alerts before the strongest shaking arrives. Trains automatically stop. Factories halt machinery. Elevators lock at safe floors. Television and radio broadcasts switch instantly to emergency coverage. Municipal loudspeakers activate. Those seconds matter. Just weeks ago, they mattered again. Even in Tokyo, far from the epicenter, the quake caused disruption. Offices paused as workers waited for swaying towers to settle. Rail lines were suspended while tracks were inspected. Flights experienced delays. Roads were checked for structural damage. Convenience stores saw sudden lines of people buying water, batteries, and food. For a country built to endure earthquakes, this was a familiar routine. But familiar does not mean comfortable. No one in Japan fully relaxes when the ground starts moving. Then came the waiting. After offshore earthquakes, people often fear the unknown more than the shaking itself. Tsunamis do not always arrive immediately. The first wave is not always the largest. Water can retreat suddenly before surging back. Harbors can amplify waves. Rivers can channel water inland. A small-looking surge can still sweep a person away. For hours, northern Japan watched the ocean. Coast Guard vessels monitored shorelines. News helicopters hovered overhead. Television anchors spoke in urgent tones as maps highlighted risk zones in red. Residents gathered on hillsides, in schools, community centers, and parking lots above sea level. Some stared silently at the horizon. Others refreshed phones for updates. Then, gradually, the first reports arrived. The waves were coming in lower than feared. Several areas recorded surges under a meter. Dangerous, but far below the catastrophic heights officials had worried about in the first minutes after the quake. Harbors churned. Water levels rose and fell. Some coastal flooding was reported, but the towering wall of water many dreaded did not materialize. Slowly the tension began to ease. Warnings were downgraded to advisories, then later lifted. Japan had avoided a nightmare. This time, even without a devastating tsunami, the earthquake still caused injuries and damage. Some people were hurt during evacuations or by falling objects. Buildings suffered cracks. Power interruptions affected parts of the region. Transportation delays rippled through daily life. Emergency crews continued inspections long after the shaking ended. Yet compared with what a magnitude 7+ offshore quake can unleash, the outcome was remarkably limited. That was not random luck. It was the result of decades of hard lessons. Japan has invested heavily in seismic engineering, emergency planning, and public education. Buildings are designed to flex rather than collapse. Coastal communities maintain evacuation routes and tsunami towers. Families keep disaster kits. Children practice drills from a young age. Phones can sound alerts in the middle of the night. Preparedness in Japan is not a hobby. It is a way of life. And geology is the reason why. Japan sits where several tectonic plates collide. To the east, the Pacific Plate slowly dives beneath northern Japan along the Japan Trench. That movement builds tremendous pressure underground. Sometimes the plates stick for years or decades. Then, without warning, they slip. When they do, they can release an enormous amount of energy. If the seafloor shifts upward, it can displace massive volumes of water and generate tsunamis that race outward at jetliner speeds in deep ocean. By the time those waves reach land, they can become walls of destruction. This recent earthquake was a reminder that the same forces responsible for 2011 are still active. They never stop. But perhaps the most unsettling development came after the immediate danger had passed. Japanese officials announced that the probability of another larger earthquake in the coming days had temporarily increased. They emphasized this was not a prediction. No scientist can state the exact time of the next quake. But major earthquakes can alter stress in nearby fault zones, sometimes increasing the chance of another rupture. For residents already rattled by one powerful event, it was a chilling message. Stay ready. One earthquake does not always mean the sequence is over. That uncertainty is part of life in Japan. Shoes placed neatly near doors in case of a nighttime evacuation. Furniture bolted to walls. Emergency water stored at home. Families knowing where to reunite if cell networks fail. Office workers glancing instinctively at exits when tremors begin. Elsewhere, those habits might seem extreme. In Japan, they're the difference between life and death. Because the next disaster may come during dinner, or at work, or while children are asleep. This quake was minor in comparison to 2011, but that's what makes it even more unsettling. It shows just how thin the line can be between minor disruption and total catastrophe. A different rupture angle, a shallower depth, a larger displacement of the seafloor, a wave 1 meter higher, a delayed evacuation. Any one of those changes could have rewritten the story completely. Instead, Japan's systems held. Its people moved quickly. Its preparation paid off. For now, trains are running again. Coastal roads are reopening. Shops are back in business. Sirens have gone quiet. But beneath the Pacific Ocean, the tectonic plates are still moving. Pressure is still building in darkness, mile by mile, inch by inch. And somewhere in the Pacific, the countdown to Japan's next major earthquake has already begun.